is Dr. Joy, and we are back with another episode of Delivering Joy MD, the Super Mama Summer Series. And today we are diving into the mechanics of breastfeeding. Like, how the heck do you actually breastfeed? I've got my special nurse friend, Richarda, who is like the ultimate breastfeeding coach and cheerleader, and she's going to be talking with us today about how the breasts actually make milk, how to know if we're getting enough milk. Make sure you keep watching. When we are thinking about breastfeeding, I really like to say that education needs to start at your OB visits. If no one's talked to you about breastfeeding so far, I think it's probably a good idea to raise that. Usually I like to start talking about it at 28 weeks. Just start with the question, how do you want to feed your baby? And a lot of women say, oh, I want to try to breastfeed. Well, what we hope that we can establish today with you is kind of a plan for if you think you want to breastfeed, how to actually get there. One thing I want to shout out before I get started, most of the departments of public health in your area have a great breastfeeding education class. Make sure that you check that out. There are also some links in the description box below. Let's jump into this video on how breastfeeding actually happens. Like, where does the milk come from?
Okay, breastfeeding starts in the brain. And most people don't realize that, or they don't think. They think it's all happening here. And this is the end result of the breastfeeding, but it actually starts in your brain. And it's hormonally driven. While you're pregnant, your body starts producing a couple of hormones that are your main one. One of them is called prolactin, and the other one's oxytocin. The placenta, which is the afterbirth, sustains the pregnancy. And it's carrying all of these hormones. Well, these lactation hormones, they're present as well, but they're just sort of hidden below the placenta hormones. Well, then after delivery, when the placenta delivers, all of a sudden these lactation hormones get to surge.
Right.
And your brain is releasing these hormones, and these little receptor sites in your breast, they're just soaking them up like a sponge. So the first 2 to 3 days after delivery, you have colostrum. And colostrum is, we call it liquid gold, but it's the super food that your baby gets until your breast milk comes in. So it takes 2 or 3 days for these little receptor sites to all of a sudden turn into lactation glands that produce and release the milk. So the colostrum is very, very small in quantity, but it's extremely high in quality. The reason that it's golden is the antibodies that are there. And if you touch your colostrum, it's really sticky and it's very, very high in nutrients. Antibodies basically are when your body has been exposed to a virus or a bacteria, your body figures out a way to defeat it. It sort of creates this formula to destroy this virus or bacteria, and it stays stored in your immune system.
I call them, they're like little protein warriors.
They are,
and they're laid
there.
A specific virus or a specific bacteria.
And that colostrum that your body's producing, it has taken these little soldiers, as you call them, and it puts it into the colostrum. So the thing that breast babies are going to get that formula babies aren't, it's almost like a dose of medicine. It's like a natural medicine. You're giving your baby these antibodies so that if they come in contact with viruses or bacteria that your body has become in contact with and has created these antibodies, your baby is more likely to already have a little soldier just sitting there ready to attack. That benefits breast babies above formula babies.
Yeah,
so formula babies, they don't get it.
Yeah,
right? They don't get that initial protection.
What decreases the number of sick days for breastfed babies and the number of sick pediatrician visits, because they already have something right there ready to attack that virus or bacteria that they're coming in contact with. So things that you have had to overcome, like stomach viruses, and if you've had common
respiratory
colds
infections,
and flus and things like that, you can pass your antibodies, your soldiers that you have in your body, onto your baby.
Premature nurseries, babies that are extremely premature, it's very, very, very important that they receive the antibodies. But you will find that pediatricians will order for babies to receive other women's from a donor bank to receive the antibodies, because they realize how important it is that even if you choose not to, in some of these higher risk level 3 nurseries, they will order it just like it was a dose of medicine. So that right there should indicate to us how important breastfeeding actually is. And studies have proven that not only does your baby, because you think, well, yeah, I want my baby to get the colostrum. And I hear that a lot. They want the baby to get the colostrum, but the breast milk, they don't really, It has been proven that the whole time that your body is producing breast milk, it will continue to provide these antibodies. And they have shown that a woman whose baby is sick, her breast milk will change in color and composition when she's sick and when her baby's sick, to continue to provide this immunity. That virus and bacteria from the baby will transfer, your breast will pick it up and say, hey, wait a minute, this is not normal. I've got something that I can produce to help get rid of this. And American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that you strictly breastfeed for the first 6 months. That's all the nutrition that your baby needs for the first 6 months.
That's right.
And the World Health Organization recommends for a full year. And the reason they do that is because they have to look at it from a global standpoint.
So for that first 6 months, exclusive breastfeeding is recommended. And if you can go a year, that's even better.
Right.
The more you breastfeed, the better. And so once these lactation hormones are starting to surge, then the prolactin really causes the ducts, which are like the little pipes inside the breast, to really start producing that milk. It's like, hey guys, we need to kick you into gear.
Right, you gotta start doing what you were born to do.
So the prolactin brings the breast cells to life. Like, oh my gosh, now my purpose is finally here. I'm ready to shine. And so they start producing, those ducts start producing that milk. And then our other main hormone that we talked about, oxytocin, causes that milk to be let down.
The releasing of it.
And so how is it connected to how often we're putting the baby on the breast, or how often we're stimulating the nipple or hand expressing?
A constant thing. These babies eat usually about every couple of hours. And that's because it is so perfectly designed for absorption. Babies get so much more nutrition from breast milk than they do formula. There's no waste in it. They aren't getting the waste that you get in formula. Formula is a lot of water because they have to bulk it up and try to make it in these mass production quantities. So it's got a lot of stuff in there that the babies don't actually need, don't actually utilize.
And that, I want to point out, is the reason that formula-fed babies are more likely to experience childhood obesity and even obesity as adults. And that is because whenever we eat foods that our body doesn't recognize, they're stored as fat.
We're designed to be held and nursed regularly. So that's why our babies eat every couple of hours, is because of our metabolism and the rate of digestion that we have, and that the babies have pretty much utilized it and used it all up and absorbed it and gotten all the nutrients that it could from it in about 2 hours. So that's why they're ready to eat about every couple of hours. How do I know if my baby's getting enough to eat? At the beginning, you don't have the full breast that you do once your milk comes in. Usually when your milk comes in about day 4, you wake up that next morning and you're like, yeah, my milk's in.
It's like,
you can tell it's like you went up from a B to a D cup overnight. So you know at that point,
it's like better than augmentation. It's just great.
How do you know when you're in the hospital for the first 2 or 3 days, am I producing enough? How do I know? Well, because of these hormones, you get 3 things that I call them the 3 dwarfs of breastfeeding. The first one that you're going to notice is you're going to notice that you're cramping. And you think, well, how is cramping good? I don't want to cramp. Well, cramping is good because, first of all, thank goodness for the effect of the oxytocin, because it does keep women from bleeding to death. Now, when women give birth, we give you medicine after delivery. You don't pay any attention to it, but we give you a medicine that causes your uterus to contract.
And it's actually oxytocin.
And it's actually oxytocin. The oxytocin that's there keeps your uterus clamped down good. A good OB doctor, when you go back from your postpartum visit, they can tell a mom that's been breastfeeding versus a mama that's formula feeding. Because your uterus gets exercised, it gets contracted down, and it goes back to that pre-pregnancy healthy state a lot quicker and more effectively than a mama who formula fed.
So breastfeeding and that oxytocin hormone that comes along with your milk letdown actually decreases the amount of blood loss that women have after they deliver, and it decreases the amount of blood loss in that first week after your delivery as well. You know, when I go in to see my patients postpartum, I can always tell who's breastfeeding, and they'll say, I'm barely bleeding at all. Or
sometimes you may go the whole time that you're strictly breastfeeding and not have a period, but it's still not reliable birth control. So
yes,
get on
absolutely.
Birth control. The cramping, if you think, just to interject here, I'm cramping. That's not a good thing, but we've discussed that it is a good thing, but what can you do about it? The best medication to do for it at all is an ibuprofen product.
Right.
There's name brand ibuprofen and generic ibuprofen, but 600 every 6. That's what I usually tell most of my patients is 600 milligrams of ibuprofen every 6 hours, and then the cramping's not going to go on the entire time that you breastfeed. You usually only notice it particularly in the first 2 to 3 days, and then for maybe a week afterwards, depending on how sensitive you are to cramping. That if you're cramping when your baby is on the breast and they're nursing and they're latching, that your body is releasing that hormone like it's supposed to.
Right.
So if you're experiencing cramping, then chances are your body's doing what it's supposed to. So people worry, they think, well, if I'm breastfeeding, does it mean that I can't have certain foods? Absolutely not. I encourage every woman, whatever you were eating when you were pregnant, continue to eat while you're breastfeeding, because your amniotic fluid is flavored. So whatever you ate when you were pregnant, it was flavoring your amniotic fluid. It's going to also flavor your breast milk. So it will be a familiar taste to your baby. So go ahead and keep eating what you ate.
Too,
yes, that's the thing is breast babies, it tastes different every time they breastfeed, whereas a formula company, every time they eat, it's going to taste exactly the same. But breast milk babies, if you ate it and it gave you gas, it may give you baby gas. So you know, that's the only thing you would need to look at is if it's causing some stomach upset for you. Sometimes it may cause some stomach upset with the baby. You get extremely thirsty usually when you're breastfeeding. Those hormones will cause you, and you know, I tell the women, take your Motrin or your ibuprofen when it's time, and keep you a big glass of some water or something really handy, because as soon as you get that baby latched on, you don't want to let go for any reason at all, and you're just thinking, I sure would like to have something to drink. So keep you a big glass of water or non-carbonated drinks, because you get the most hydration from those, and just drink to thirst. You know, there's no set rule as to how much you need, but just drink to thirst. You go to the bathroom and you TT, look in the toilet. It shouldn't hardly look like you went at all. So, you know, the lighter and clearer your urine is will let you know how hydrated you are. So you're going to get crampy, you're going to get thirsty, and about towards the end of that breastfeeding session, it's going to be almost like somebody has given you something to sedate you. It's like when you eat that big Thanksgiving dinner afterwards and you just say, oh, I'm so sleepy. And that's when I tell the moms, when the baby sleeps, you sleep. If it's at all possible, allow that hormone that makes you sleepy to get you a good nap. And they have proven women who breastfeed actually get more sleep than women who formula feed.
Yeah, and that's,
I think, how is that possible? I think it's totally hormonally driven.
You don't really have to necessarily get up to breastfeed. Like, you can do a sideline position, and then once the baby's sleepy, you put them back in their bassinet, you roll over and you go to sleep too.
It's not up into the kitchen, measuring out formula, mixing it with the water, heating it up, waiting for it to get warm. You don't even really need to turn on any ambient no lights at all.
Just your baby, you know where your breast is, and your baby probably knows by the time they get into a good routine as well. So that is kind of how moms really kind of avoid having to really get up, be fully awake, be fully
It's already available. It's the right temperature, the right amount, 24 hours a day. It's always right there, easy,
ready to go. Breastfeeding is the best feeding that we can do.
The hardest job you'll ever love.
The hardest job you'll ever love. It requires a commitment, but we know that when you put your mind to it, you are strong and you are capable and you can do it. So if you have questions or comments, put them in the comment section below. Tell us about your breastfeeding journey, or if you're getting ready to start preparing for breastfeeding, tell us how that's going for you. We would love to interact with you on this topic, and we're going to see you in the next episode. All right, girl gang, we'll see you next video. Peace. See
See you soon, girl gang. Don't forget to subscribe and comment below.